Today, first off, let me ask if there are any bill introductions. Any of them online? Tom? Nope. All right. Let's move forward then. Today we'll have an informational briefing on we'll hear the budget for the insurance department. Then, time permitting, we'll be able to, I believe, take action on the Real Estate Appraisal Board budget and the Real Estate Commission budget. Due to the possible severe weather that this is Kansas, it may or may not get here, who knows? That's why I wanted to see what was going on the floor. Depending upon what we find in the insurance department budget, we may very well take action on that budget as well if we don't see anything particularly troublesome or we feel pretty comfortable with it. So just kind of keep that in your mind as a possibility, just in case we're not here tomorrow. I want to be able to get this thing out, get it written up prior to reporting it out in appropriations on Thursday. Which may not even happen then either, because again, severe weather, might move back. We don't exactly know. I was told that the word for the day is flexibility. I'm not sure that was a word for unity ever, but we'll go with that anyway. So to kick things off with an overview of the insurance department budget, we have none other than Bobby Mariani. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. First, we're going to have Mr. DeBoer go over the budget.
Yes, thank you.
I'm used to Bobby going over budgets with me, so sorry.
All right. Yes, thank you, Chairman Committee. I will be discussing the Kansas Insurance Department budget analysis. Much like the other budgets, the first few pages has a general overview. The Insurance Department does house the Insurance Commissioner as well as the Securities Commissioner's office. If you could turn to page 8, we'll begin with the FY 2022 analysis. At the top of the page, you will see a table where you'll see the legislative approved, the agency's revised estimate, as well as the governor's recommendation. Those numbers coincide with the numbers in the bottom portion of the page. So the legislative approved number, there were no adjustments made to the $34.8 million appropriated for FY22. So the agency's revised estimate is $37.5 million. This is from all funds for expenditures in FY22. This is an increase of $2.8 million or 7.9% above the FY22 approved amount. Down below, you'll see that there were the agency received an award of $675,000 from a grant from CMS. And this grant will be split between FY22 and 23. So you will see half in 22 and half in 23. And this is to help with laws and regulations and procedures with selected federal market reforms that have taken place. There are also other adjustments there at the bottom. You'll see expenditures and salaries and wages increased. You'll see contractual services increase of 2.4 million, commodities of 1,750, and capital outlay of 39,000. So the contractual services is due to expenditures with accountants and auditors to assist the regulation insurance companies. The increase in commodities is primarily due to the office supplies and upkeep. Capital outlay is primarily due to expenditures in technology upgrades as well as computer replacement, and that's on a 3 to 4 year rotation within the agency. So at the bottom of the page on page 8, you'll see that the agency requests 35.5 FTE positions. This is a half FTE position below the FY22 approved number. On the following page, on page 9, at the very top of the page, you'll see the governor's recommendation. The governor concurs with the agency's FY22 revised estimate, but the governor does have the following adjustment that there's a recommendation to include language specifying the Securities Act fee fund is a no-limit fund. The governor's recommendation also includes the 135.5 FTE positions, which is the same number as the agency's FY22 revised estimate. So I'll stand for questions on FY22.
Yes, Representative Amix.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Martin, remind me, because I just can't remember which year, because I've seen this, I think, 3 years in a row. There was a sale of a building.
Correct. And I believe that was 3 years ago. The old building. It was last year.
Okay, so those funds went into FY21.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I'll get this ball rolling. The $2.4 million increase in contractual services to assist in the regulation of insurance companies, how does that differ from what was expected to be done in the prior year? I mean, are these, so I don't think it's new that we're suddenly regulating insurance companies. I think that's kind of what the department does. So why is there a $2.4 million increase there?
To my knowledge, I don't have any
Okay,
specificities on that.
that'll be one for the agency. All right. Yep. Also, this also might be more for the agency as far as the capital outlay on computer replacement. I'm assuming based on that they're not part of OITS or utilizing that lease service that is available.
Yeah, that is correct. They do not lease their equipment.
Okay, so that'll be a question for the agency as well. Be prepared. Any further questions from the committee? None. All right, well, let's go on to 23.
Thank you, Chairman. FY23 analysis begins on page 11. Similar to FY22, at the top, you'll see a chart with beginning with the agency's revised estimate of 22, and then any adjustments made by the agency to that number, as well as the governor's recommendation. Below the chart, you'll see the agency requests expenditures of $37.1 million, and this is from all funds, and this is a decrease of $437,937. Below the FY22 revised estimate, number one, which correlates with the chart up above, the agency has been awarded the $675,000. That's second half of the grant that was awarded by CMS. And then you have other adjustments due to contractual services and trainings, accountants, and others, including rent, OITS expenditures, things like that.
Aren't being utilized?
Excuse me?
Aren't being utilized, or OITS? Or portions are?
Portions are. Well, there was an adjustment in OITS rates, so this encompasses the OITS rates.
All right, all right.
So at the bottom of the agency request, they do request 135.5 FTE positions, which is the same as their 22 revised number. The bottom of the page, on page 11, you'll have the governor recommendation, and the governor concurs with the same recommendation that the Securities Act fee fund becomes a no-limit fund. She also recommends the 135.5 FTE positions, which is the same as the agency's request. With that, I'll stand for questions.
All right, thank you. Yep, sorry, I jumped on you there. The Securities Act fee fund being set to no limit, that would require legislative action. Am I correct on that?
I believe that it can be done through the appropriations process.
Oh, really? Okay,
Correct.
excellent. All right. Committee, questions? Representative Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, if these are questions that the agency, I'm a little bit, and the question of the chairman kind of alluded to this, as to exactly what is so different in fiscal year 2022 and 2023. I mean, for instance, the total salary and wages went up from 10.1 million. I'm reading off the 406-410 report up to 11.4 million, which is quite a jump. That's over 10% on salaries and wages. I mean, did your FTEs go up that much, or is this what?
The agency had some vacant positions that they are planning to fill, so that would increase the salaries and wages.
Okay. Okay, but still on top of that, your fees for professional services went from 3.3 million up to 4.3 million in 1 year. And I would have my guess as to what that was, that it, maybe you were subbing out some services, but to have both your professional services jump dramatically and your salaries and wages jump dramatically, really, I'm at a loss. I mean, is there some explanation?
Chairman and Representative, I can't find it in my notes currently, but I can look into that for you.
Okay, yeah, it's on the 406, 410 report. I mean, it sticks out quite dramatically. And I have some other questions, but I'll probably save them for the people from the department.
Any further questions for the revisor? Online? I guess that's it. All right, very nice.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Chairman.
Now we can welcome to committee Bobby Mariani. Bobby, I think a couple of questions were already teed up for you, and there may very well be some follow-up after that, but I'll let you go ahead and get started.
I'm a lot shorter than he is. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if it's okay, I will go ahead and go through my remarks because some of those things you asked about might be answered in the remarks that I plan to make. And then if there are additional questions, of course, at the end. I do want to say that Commissioner Schmidt regrets that she couldn't be here today. She always likes to come and, give appreciation to the committee for working on budgets. She knows how tedious that can be and how much effort you put into the budget. So she does appreciate that and wishes she could be here today, but
Just one correction here, not tedious, joyous.
joyous. Okay, how joyous, but how much work they are. So she does appreciate that. We do appreciate the opportunity to come visit with you about our budget, and we are always continually looking for efficiencies and different ways that we can prioritize services, improve services for our constituents to Kansas. So since Martin went over the numbers, I'm just going to try to hit some highlights of things that are different and some of the priorities in our agency. I will speak about staffing. We are currently trying to recruit for some vacancies, especially in some of our very technical positions that have significant requirements to them. Our examiner positions require either a certified financial examiner certificate or a CPA, and those are pretty hard to pull in to agencies. So the few that we have hired, we had to hire at a bit higher rate than we maybe have in the past. We are still trying to recruit some. That's why we've budgeted salaries for those. But in the meantime, our contractual services has gone up because we've had to contract out for some of those services that we were not able to get individuals in. So that might explain why both of those items have gone up. We've had to hire at a higher rate. We're expecting or trying or hoping that we'll be able to hire in this year. But in the meantime, we have to budget the contractual services so that we can contract out if we need to for actuarial services or those type of things. Some of the highlights, I think we're very proud that we went through accreditation this year, and we passed our accreditation with quite flying colors, which means that we are accredited for another 5 years. So we're very thankful for that, because if you don't or you get some significant findings, you have to go through that process every year until you get it right. So we're very appreciative that we passed it and get another 5 years to work on the next one. I don't know if you remember last year, there was a Senate Bill 37, that significantly changed the producer licensing process that we have in the department. So we have successfully implemented that. There were changes that went into effect June 1st, which didn't give us a whole lot of time to get those done, but we got those done successfully. And then the second part that went into effect January 1st. So we did get that all implemented. As with any significant computer process changes in those things, a slight few bumps, but we feel like we're through most of that and providing good services to the producer licensing entities out there, or people that are agents that are licensed. So that was a significant thing that we went through this year. We did make some efficiencies in that process. We've eliminated outdated paper processes and are utilizing more user-friendly tools online for those people. We are saving about $25,000 a year in postage by doing that. So, because we sent out a lot of things in paper previously, and we are, as we promised with the bill, reducing the department's revenue. We believe a minimum of $5 million every year because of some of those process changes we have and how we do the appointments process, which will be a savings to the industry out there that has to go through that appointment process. So we're very happy that we were able to achieve those goals. We also have made strides in addressing the items related to the settlement of the Bloomer Security Fee Fund case that was tried against the state and related to the transfer of the fund balances, as Martin mentioned, to the state general fund. We have contracted, and this is another reason some of our contractual services went up. We needed to contract in this year with some entities in order to meet the requirements of that settlement. So we have contracted with a business analyst to review and make recommendations about how we process the registrations in the securities area. We also are in the process of developing a rate setting tool to right size our rates and fees to be able to make changes timely in the future on those as well. We are in the process of contracting for services to do some surveys and stakeholder meetings with the securities industry in order to make sure we're providing the services. Obviously, we have to do the statutory requirements, but are there other services that they want us to provide or they don't want us to provide, and what those would be? So we're getting ready to contract with an entity to do those things. And we also continue to look at other strategies to meet the requirements that were put forth in that settlement agreement. As far as fiscal matters, Martin mentioned what our requests were, and we would appreciate your support of our request. As he noted, we are requesting an increase in our professional services, both in contractual services for both fee funds. And again, one of those is the need to contract out for some of those positions we have not been able to fill and to contract out for actuarial services and some of those items. But we also, on the security side, we had an increase there due to the need to contract for some services to meet the requirements of the settlement agreement. So it's on both sides that we've increased the contractual services for those. Then it's also affected, those contractual services are affected by that federal grant because some of the things that we'll need to do for that federal grant, we will contract out those services as well. So that's another reason our contractual services went up. We will note that the insurance regulation fee fund does continue to have a healthy balance. However, as I noted, with our changes in producer licensing, it will, at a minimum, reduce by $5 million the revenue that we bring into that fund each year. And we anticipate that it's more likely to be around $8 million less that we will. So that will affect the balance pretty significantly over the next few years. There is currently a provision in the budget bill that eliminates the transfer to the state general fund of the balance in the securities fee fund. But as you all know, a budget bill's provisos are only good for those budget years. And so the settlement agreement also requested that we bring forth a a substantive bill to make that change permanently. And so there are two bills out there, Senate Bill 392 and House Bill 2447, that have been introduced to eliminate that transfer permanently, which will affect the state general fund by about $5.1 million. So just to note, that was a requirement of that settlement agreement as well. So those are some of the significant things. I hope that maybe address the salaries and the contractual agreement ones, and I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
All right, well, I will kick things off since I'm seeing nothing going on over here. With regards to the computer replacement, OITS just rolled out a program where they're doing leases, which kind of smooths out the budgeting lines a little bit. Is that something that's been considered by the insurance department?
We did look at that. We've looked at that in the past, and we continue to look at that. But we have found that we are able to purchase laptops and systems that more meet our needs at a cost that is less. And I realize it's a lease and you can, but we have found just, in the 3 years' time that we purchased them, there are significant changes on that. So we just have not found it cost effective for us to do that. We have looked at it.
Okay, all right. And are you replacing like a third of them each year? Is that?
We try to do a 3-year cycle, yes. Now, we did last year, or actually in 2020, 2019, the COVID years, because not all of our employees had laptops, and, we had to send everybody home for a while in that, and we did not want to lose any of our productivity. We just couldn't afford to lose our productivity. So with some of the federal money that was given out, we did kind of purchase ahead on that because we were converting people at that time from desktop to laptop, but we just hadn't quite got there. So we did up our schedule a tiny bit in order to put laptops on everybody's desk so they could work at home if they needed to effectively, and still use the laptop at work.
Makes sense. Okay. Now, also, if I'm understanding correctly, looking at the contractual services and payroll, if I'm understanding correctly, these are projections covering you either way, so that either one gets raised or the other, but probably not both in reality.
Yes, but I will say on the contractual services, some of that is that one time. So as you'll see, our budget goes back down in 2023 because the securities fund contracts that we're doing are one-time events. The actuaries, financial examiners, some of those, that is sort of we're covering our bases either way with those. But the part for securities will go down. We expect that to go down next year.
All righty. Now, I'm afraid you kind of lost me a little bit. I was trying to keep up. Can you talk to me about the effects of HB 2447 and or SB 392?
In last year's budget and again this year's budget, there is a proviso that eliminates the transfer that the lawsuit was about on the Securities Act fee fund, because they were saying, we shouldn't be able to transfer that to the state general fund. That's what the lawsuit was about. So a proviso for the last couple of years has taken care of not doing the transfer. But so those are only good for the years that they're in there. And the lawsuit settlement says that we will work with the legislature, because obviously we can't do it, but work with the legislature to do a substantive bill so that is taken care of in the future. Yeah.
I wasn't remembering the way that was all structured. Thank you. That does put that question to ease in my mind. All right, committee, any further questions? Representative Amix.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for being here, Bobby. On the line that deals with rent, what buildings do you rent?
We rent the building, the office building that we're in now because we sold the building that we were in. So we rent a building that's at 1300 Arrowhead for our office space.
And that is all the rent for it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And I'm to assume that's not a state-owned building?
No,
Okay.
it's not.
Representative Wagner.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I do have a number of questions that for some points of clarification. I know this came up last year, and I understand on your fund balances, how the one bill is now, it's kind of refunding, or it cut it quite, I guess your Securities Act fee fund, was that the one? Okay. But I guess my question is on the Insurance Department Service Regulation Fund, the ending balance is like over 55 million or over $50 million. So why is that so high? I mean, that's like incredibly high.
Part of that is the way we did our process for our producer licensing area. And that's why we got the bill passed last year. And we anticipate that at a minimum, those fees will go down by about 5 million each year, a minimum. We think it will be more like 8 million each year. And so part of the reason we have that balance is we are waiting to see for sure how that impacts. Like I said, we just got the last part of that implemented this January. So, by next year, we might have a really good idea of what the actual reduction in fees might be to the fund. And so that's kind of where we're spending down. Plus, again, we're seeing, our need for contractual services seems to continuing to grow in some of those expenditures as well.
If I will say, of course, I've only been on this committee for just over a year, but the revenue and expenditures on the chart on page 5 are roughly in the $10 to $12 million range currently. And, the fund balance, which had been 16.9 million in fiscal year 2019, is projected to be at $55 million. This is almost unheard of to have a fund balance that many times bigger than the underlying expenditures of the.
Part of it too is, if you'll recall, a couple of years ago, because of a different lawsuit on the insurance regulation fee fund, we got twice we got $16 million refunded to the fund because of that lawsuit. So that sort of jumped the balance up. Again, that's naturally as that refund runs itself out. I think that will adjust our balance to the fund as well.
Because you got $16 million twice or just one time?
Was it 8? Oh, yeah.
Yes. So it was 3 payments of approximately, you have my notes there, 5.4 million, and the last payment was made in FY21.
So a total of 60 million. Sorry about that.
Good. And if I can, Mr. Chairman, so do you have a plan, to get this down from 55 million? Obviously this is money that came in from the insurance industry that, how is this going to be rebated to them, or what, do you guys have a long-term plan? Because this is a ton of money.
Well, again, that refund sort of jumped it up a bit. We're looking at how the producer licensing bill will affect that fund as well, how our contractual services go the next couple of years. But yes, we will plan on looking at that, evaluated each year to see, where that balance goes. I guess we were hesitant the last couple of years to do anything because we weren't sure how this licensing restructure we did with producer licenses would actually impact the fund.
I will, if I may, I really salute you on the Securities Act fee fund balance. You guys, with this bill, are bringing it down, and that's really great. I just hope you can come up with something on this service regulation fund that would be equally critical. Now, if I can go to expenditures. Okay. So, I mean, just for point of clarification, I just want to make sure I heard you correct, that what you told the chairman was that, I mean, on this 406, 410 report, I mean, you both have the situation of your salaries and wages as far as requested budget is up like 1.3 million, plus your fees, professional services are up over $1 million. And you're saying part of that is that you have been hiring out people to fill some positions that you're going to then turn in-house. And then part of it must be that you had to hire some sort of high-priced consultants over this Blumenhurst settlement.
We actually have, I wouldn't say high price, we have 3 different contracts right now in place to deal with that. So we hired a business analyst to come in and review our processes. We've hired someone to help us with a rate setting tool so that in the future, kind of depending upon how that fund looks, we can adjust the fees quickly. We can calculate what they need to and adjust them quickly. And then we also are contracting out with someone to help us survey our constituents in the securities industry and also do some focus groups out. We want to go out west and talk to the industry out there as well. And so those are 3 different things that we're doing in order to address the issues that were brought up in the Bloomer case.
Okay. If I may, just 1 or 2 other quick questions. I thought you mentioned something about contracting out some actuarial services. Is that correct?
That would be on the insurance side. We only have in-house 1 person who can actually do actuarial services. As you might know, they're a hard commodity to get as well.
Okay.
And so often we have to contract out for actuarial services because it's just more than the 1 person can do. We have to review rate setting and those type of things. And so you need an actuarial to be able to do that.
Okay. 1 other final budget kind of commentary is, okay, this is, again, from the 406 report, that your printing and advertising budget is jumping, it's doubling, going from $239,000 to $480,000, and then at $496. I mean, you commented on something that you were doing that was like less postage, but I'm not really kind of seeing it, or what would be what's the justification for doubling printing and advertising?
One thing that we noticed when we came in is that there had not been much activity in the investor education portion of the securities division,
Okay.
kind of almost non-existent. And so we've tried to work in the last couple of years to figure out some creative ways to reach people on investor education. And so I think it's almost $500,000 over 2 years. So 250 in the one and 250 in the other, that we are doing more investor education programs and services that fall under advertising, if you will, even though it's more of an education aspect.
Okay. I don't know, I mean, just sort of my offhand commentary, I would say, it's really kind of a bad look. I mean, just in the sense of that where you'll have private companies where the owner is like running for office, where they up their advertising expenses on an election year, because it gets their name out in sort of a generic sort of way. I mean, nothing personal against Mr. Schmidt, but this does have kind of a bad look to it, that it's coming up an election cycle and your advertising's going through the roof for your agency. I mean, again,
Duly noted.
okay.
I will just say, though, that is part of something we're statutorily required to do. We have a separate fund for that, so that monies is put into that fund to increase our investor education. And although that falls under advertising, it really is education for investors out there. So, but duly noted on how it looks. I appreciate that.
And I thought about jumping in on that one. That had been a topic of conversation in the past, that there had been, for the longest time, zero effort in investor education. Am I right in zero? I think it was, if not zero, it was pretty close, regarding investor education and that sort of thing, outreach to investors. Am I right on that? Okay.
And I would say in the past, really what they had done was they hired some people to be on staff to go out and do a few things. We are kind of taking a different approach. We don't really want somebody sitting on staff that just goes out periodically. We'd rather contract with somebody else to do those education services than have somebody just be on staff just to do that.
Representative French.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here. I understand that you have a staffing problem just like everybody else does. And so the reason you're going to contracting services is to cover that. The question is, if you were fully staffed with all your authorized 135.5 FTE, would you still require contractual services?
Probably the only one that we would need to do that is for actuarial services. I mean, I'm ever hopeful we might be able to hire some in-house, but in reality, that is periodic work. Like when we have a complex rate
Right.
thing that we need to send out, we send it out. Having an actuary on staff is very, very expensive.
Right.
So I would presume in the future, we're still not going to be able to have an on-staff actuary. So we would still need those contractual services. The ones we'd like to have on staff are our financial examiners. That is something that accreditation looks at quite a bit. We were able to hire a chief financial examiner, which is probably, again, why our salaries and wages go up, because they're very expensive. But we do need some principal financial examiners as well. We would like to get those on staff. But again, the qualifications for those are by accreditation standards. We have to have those qualifications to hire that person. So I feel like we can, and we're going to try to do that, but it just depends on how the market goes in the next couple of years.
Based on that, what is your current vacancy as far as your FTE? What's the percentage are you down?
Well, our FTE is 135.5, and I think right now we have 127.
Okay.
I think we have 127 positions filled. I'd have to.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
In fact, you might want to lend your services to KDOT. I understand they're having much bigger difficulty than that.
I'm sure, yes. But as you can see, I mean, we only have 100 and some positions, which doesn't match them.
Well, that's true.
But ours are very, technical and highly skilled positions. So
All right, further questions? Representative Wagner.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me one more opportunity. Just, there was something else that really stood out on this report. I just want clarification. On your travel and subsistence, it had dropped down to $1,500 in fiscal year 2021, and now it's going to be up in $65,000-$70,000. That is travel and subsistence, like there's a separate thing that says in-state travel and subsistence, which was at $266 and going up to $15,000. And you even have a separate out-of-state travel and subsistence, which was $900, jumping up to $24,000. Is that for conventions, or that's like for what?
it's for several different things, but part of it is, we banned travel during COVID, so that went down significantly. But it's for our compliance auditors go out into the field to investment broker dealers and audit those people, so they have to travel where the investment brokers are. Our special agents have to travel for investigation, so they travel, throughout the state. And then there is some of it that's continuing education and, travel to some workshops or continuing education type activities that we need to keep our people with all their certifications.
There's not an insurance department, annual convention someplace? I mean, I curious.
Yeah, but they're never, well,
It's in,
say
it's
never.
in Bali.
Hardly in Kansas. Although I will say for our state, our travel is low compared to others because our National Association of Insurance Commissioners is in Kansas City. But it's in the Missouri side, so it's considered state travel to some of that. But
All right.
we're very fortunate that they're that close because we are able to do one-day trips to some of those sessions.
I thought it was in Bali.
Huh?
I thought it was in Bali.
Well, then I would go.
All right, committee, any further questions? Speak now. Online? Seeing none. All right, I think Tom nodded off, didn't he? All right, very good. Thank you very much for being here, Bobby. All right, committee, let's turn our attention to the Real Estate Commission, which was the first one that we heard yesterday. There were a couple of things that jumped out at me. However, they were adequately answered by the agency, as far as, at least in my mind. Do I have a recommendation from the committee regarding the Real Estate Commission?
Chairman, I would make a motion to concur with the governor's recommendation on FY 2022 and FY 2023, if you want to do it that way.
I'm absolutely open to that. Do I have a second? Second by Representative Arnberger. All right, discussion. The things that stood out in my mind were the increase of special revenue funds for the Kansas Attorney General's increase in their legal representation. That, it turns out, was a $60 pass-through fee for individuals. And so the agency doesn't really even touch that. It's just passed through. And so they had to budget for it because it did touch their agency. And then the other thing was just the decrease in the vehicle mileage. I was a little concerned that maybe things weren't happening that were supposed to be happening. And it turns out, technology. Go figure, Zoom meetings. So I am comfortable with these budget recommendations. Although I would make a note, and Dylan, if you could do that, or Mr. DeBoer, okay, that they do lease their office with potentially more office space that's state-owned coming online. Like to look at the opportunities of moving to a state-owned building. But that's several years down the road. It's just for the future. Any other bits of discussion from the committee? Seeing none, all those in, yes. All right. Dylan has reminded me that in order for me to make a comment like that, we have to pass it by the committee. So does anyone object to the note that I mentioned regarding leased property? Very good. All right, seeing no objection, then it's by consensus. Thank you. All those in favor of passing out the Real Estate Commission budget for 2022 and 2023 with the annotation, say aye. And opposed, say nay. Seeing none. All right, very good. That will be the report to appropriations on whatever day we're actually doing that now. We did get for those of you who didn't have your emails open, the House is not going to be meeting tomorrow. So that's going to make things a little bit complicated for budget report outs and for the budget staff as well. You guys might be snowed in, drinking hot chocolate while making your budget write-ups. That sounds just joyful. All right, let's go ahead and look at the Real Estate Appraisal Board. Again, it's a fee-funded agency. There's zero coming from SGF. The $1,000 for printers did catch my eye, but that was explained. I mean, it's one printer in one office. One thing that did catch my eye, and if it's the will of the committee, I'd like to call attention to it in the report out, is the diminishing fee fund balance in their appraiser fee fund. That's something that we discussed in committee. The agency believes that over the next couple of years, that might cause a problem, but isn't particularly concerned about it right now. Looking at the rate of decline, however, I think that we might have 2 years, and that's about the maximum. And that's, well, provided economic news improves, then we have 2 years. Otherwise, we might only have 1.5. I would also make a note, if it's the will of the committee, that this is also leased office space.
Mr. Chair, are we on a motion? Are we on a motion?
We're not currently on a motion. Would you like to make a
Are you
motion?
looking for a motion?
I would love to have a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we pass out the Real Estate Appraisal Board budget for fiscal year 2022 and 2023 as the governor recommended with your proposed notes.
Like that motion, and second by Representative Amix. Any further discussion? One thing that I'm not going to make in the motion, but the increased contractual services, which was rather stark, 79.9% in 2022, was due to increased applications. Again, that's a pass-through, but that is something that caused me to have palpitations for a brief time. Further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of passing out the governor's recommendation with my notations for the Real Estate Appraisal Board for 2022, 2023, all say aye. And opposed, say nay. Very good. That will be the report to appropriations. All right, committee, we've got worlds of time here. And I know that no one is in a hurry to get home. I'd like to open up the discussion, because we're not going to be here tomorrow, regarding the Kansas Insurance Department. I know they're sitting in front of us, so makes us nervous, tense. All right, I personally, let me get back to my notes here, 1 second. One second, I'm refreshing my mind. One notation that I would want to make on this budget. Someone whistle at me. would be the fee fund that was in discussion. That's something that obviously the insurance department is already aware of, but I think it should be noted to pay particular attention to the insurance department service regulation fee fund due to the fact that it's climbing. And that one, is that currently a no limit fund? Okay, well, that's a darn good thing because it doesn't seem to have a limit. I think particular attention should be paid to that in the future to make sure that that isn't going out of control and we're not taking more from our insurance companies and agents than is absolutely necessary for their oversight.
Chairman, would you entertain a motion?
I would love to entertain a motion.
So the motion would be to accept the governor's recommendation for fiscal year 2022 and 2023 on the insurance department budget with particular notation about the, extremely high amount sitting in the service regulation fund. And if I would throw in a note with your approval, just this whole notion of both their salaries and wages going up and their professional services fees going up is a bit unsettling. I mean, if it's one goes up, one goes down in the end, but that is concerning. And I think it should be duly noted to appropriations.
I think that's a valid notion. Now, I will explain it as probably only one or the other will go up, but I think it's valid to point that out. Absolutely. All right. The motion is seconded by Representative Arnberger. Any further discussion regarding the insurance department? Yes, Representative French.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one note on the securities regulations. It's going up 47.7% in 2022. This is on page 20. And the following page on workers' comp, it's going up 86.7%. Of course, the following year, 2023, it's going down again. But I think it's something we need to watch. We don't want it to be a trend that those kind of increases continue. So I don't know if you want to mention that or not, but thought I might just throw that in.
I would certainly accept that comment. I'm going to have to do some homework before I present that to appropriations. Mr. DeBoer, whenever you're free. He does my homework. I just take notes. All right. Is that all right with the second, or with the maker of the
The
motion?
maker.
And the second.
And second.
Very good.
Mr. Chair, I just want to double check. I pulled out your rules. I don't see anywhere in here that we have to have that there's a 24-hour rule. So I just want to double check with you if we need to suspend anything to work this budget today.
We do not.
Okay, I just want to double check with that.
With policy issues, those do exist. With a budget committee, it doesn't. And although I prefer to have 24 hours, I'm a little bit concerned about how this is going to work in the timetable.
I completely agree. I am antsy to get home, so I just wanted to
I'd
double
really
check.
rather have time to take it home and chew on it for a while before making recommendations. But given the situation, I'm going to try to avoid that if we can. All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of passing out the insurance department budget for the 2022 and 2023 years with the collected notations, say aye. And opposed, say nay. Now, if Tom's doing something online, I can't see him or hear him. So if he's yelling nay or something, please, somebody let me know, okay? He's mute? Okay, perfect. Let's say anything else. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude the work for today. Nice work. Getting our first budgets out. Isn't this exciting? Tomorrow was scheduled to be hearing the budgets for lottery, racing, and gaming. I anticipate that's going to be pushed probably to Thursday. We will see if this impending doom is going to interfere with keeping our Friday open. It may. But until tomorrow, or nope, sorry, until Thursday, we are adjourned.